asked Eric Trexler, Senior Vice President for U.S. Public Sector at Palo Alto Networks, to review the components of success in Zero Trust.
So I think they're the pillars of Zero Trust that we talk about often. But I think what gets lost in the messaging is the business value. Why are we doing this in general? What are we trying to solve for? And it's really better protecting data and our personnel, our transactions, our applications. But there's a business mission requirement behind that. And that's so critical that we focus on that. It gets lost 9 times out of 10 in conversations we have.
What would bring that back more effectively to the forefront of that conversation, Eric?
I always encourage my peers, my partners, our teams to go back to why are we trying to secure this part of the mission? What is the business outcome? Are we trying to ship equipment over to Ukraine? Are we trying to do something in the Indo-PACOM AOR? Why are we doing this?
From a cultural perspective, it seems to me that's beneficial too, to be focused on the mission delivery and the end user rather than the technical stuff behind the curtain, right?
It absolutely is, because it's not a product problem. Zero Trust is a foundational way of changing the way we think, or an architecture, if you will. It's not about products. There's no Zero Trust product out there, despite what industry says all the time. You'll see Zero Trust all over the place. It's not a product problem. You're trying to solve a mission requirement.
Is that an indicator then, if somebody's offering a Zero Trust thing, that's not something that's potentially useful to somebody in DoD?
Well, if that's your disqualifier, everybody's out.
Okay.
Everybody's talking about Zero Trust.
Right.
But again, go back to why are we doing this? I was at RSA a couple weeks ago, and it was chaos. And it was all about Zero Trust and AI. But nobody was talking about why. Few people were. We need to get back to that core message.
So I guess that's encouraging to government users if the private sector companies that go to something like RSA are struggling with this concept of why with Zero Trust. I guess it's okay that government is too, but what gets around that obstacle? What gets back to answering that why question?
So I really think going back to what we're trying to secure, why we're trying to secure it, what the mission is, what technologies we can then bring in to do that. You know, those are critical components of Zero Trust. It's much more than what we're getting from NIST or CISA or DISA or any of the others. What are we trying to do here and why? How do we make it a more secure environment? How do we drive things like better user ability, user capability, accessibility, ease of use, while increasing security as we modernize our systems? I think modernization, I think automation, to me, those are all core components that you have to consider when you're talking about Zero Trust.
We don't have time to go into every technology that it is going to be incorporated into an effective Zero Trust strategy, but do those technologies all exist and it's a matter of putting them together, or is there some missing piece that still needs to be figured out by either industry or government or some combination thereof?
So they do exist, and partnerships are required. Coming from RSA recently, there were over 3,000 vendors reportedly on the show floor. I don't know how you'd figure out who to work with if you tried. The other thing we see a lot of is the customer tries to be the integrator. It is much better when we industry consolidate at the factory floor than when a customer tries to bring multiple vendor solutions together and make them work. So partnerships are critical, and also looking at, we believe, the larger platform vendors as opposed to the technology du jour. I can't tell you how many companies I did not see at RSA this year and how many I saw for the first time. And I promise you, next year, a lot of the ones I saw for the first time will not be there again. So you've got to make strategic bets.
In making those strategic bets, what does a government person look for? What should they be analyzing to try to make the right bets so that they're with somebody who's in it for the long haul too?
I would look at size, scale, proven track record. I would talk to companies about R&D. We're putting more R&D than the next more than double the R&D of our next closest competitor. We're investing in the cybersecurity space, and those are big dollars. These are important components to look for when you're not looking to roll out just a product technology and you need something. In the government, 10-year programs are the norm. Right?
Yeah. So if this is a journey, and everybody seems to call it a journey, and I think that's apt, what does that journey look like 2 years from now, 5 years from now? There's obviously no end state if it's a journey.
It's a continuous walk. We're constantly iterating and getting better and better and better. Zero trust usually, in my opinion, starts with identity. That's kind of the foundation, because if you don't know who your users are, it's really hard to protect your data, your applications, and your users. So you start there, and then every agency, every organization has its own journey that it's going on, its own prioritization. The best advice I can give is work with your industry partners. Help them understand where you are, where you want to go, take best practices from them, modify your plans accordingly, and then work against that plan and constantly iterate.
Eric, there are lots of timelines and lots of deadlines associated with all this zero trust rollout, not just in the Defense Department, but across the civilian sector too. Who's doing it well that other agencies could emulate wherever they are in their zero trust journeys?
Well, I'll give you an example of a large DoD agency. We're up in Baltimore at TechNet, and DISA, rolling out the Thunderdome program, is really doing modernization well and cost reductions, looking at reducing the JRSS stacks, which are a massive expense, while modernizing and driving ease of use for our customers. It'd probably be the first one I'd think of, especially where we are today. They're doing an excellent job of bringing commercial capabilities to the Defense Department.
Is that an example of having to fix the airplane while you're flying it too, because they've got to keep all these networks secure, they've got to stay on JRSS to the degree that they're on it in the midst of that transition, right?
It absolutely is, and that plane is landing, the JRSS plane, in 2027.
Yeah.
It's in the program. That's funding and everything really curtails in 2027. So they have a quick time frame, and the great thing about modern commercial technology, you can bring users on very quickly.
Eric, it's great to talk to you. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.